If you haven't heard of the French Cleat system for organising your workshop, you have got to get it in your life. Welcome to the workshop. So today I want to show you this storage system that I've installed on my walls for basically everything from steel to tools to speaker and my iPhone. It is a game changer. The usual paradigm for sheds is, you know, a pegboard like this, maybe one of these racks where your tools are all held. And they're okay. They're obviously functional. They work. They're fine. But they are just that, fine. And we don't want fine. So I'm going to actually at some point change this wall and this wall. But I started originally with this one. You got to commit to a couple of days of making it, making all the shelves, bespoke storage systems for everything that you want. But it's definitely worth taking the time out of your forging or your woodwork or whatever you're doing to make this system. All right, so firstly, what is the French Cleat system? So basically you've got a piece of wood with a 45-degree angling from the front down to the back on a piece of board or your wall. And then you've got a second piece which comes along and mates up to it perfectly. And they come together and it's just a very, very strong solution. And you can pick these up, move them out of the way, bring another one in, plonk it down, and then you've got a different thing in the same spot. So let me show you some of the solutions I've put together. So we have functional ones like this, which obviously holding some tools. Now this is basically cutting slots out of one piece, filling the end with another, putting the French Cleat on the back as a board on the back and a board on the bottom, and that is making up this. But that was basically drilling holes in the back, as you can see, and then using the bandsaw to cut out the ridges, the slots up to the holes, so pretty easy. And then you've got things like the classic screwdriver set, and this is simply an L bracket with an angle. And where on this one we have the cleat, and then that's on a backing board. This one is just using the cleat as the backing board up the back, right? And then we just put different holes in each one. Super simple. This is one of my favorites, my little paper towel holder. I originally designed it without this, and when the wind blew, this thing would just kind of unravel slowly and I just end up with paper towel down here. And so I included this little holder, which is just some copper bar and some loosely screwed little hinges, and that works a treat. I like this one. This is one of my little favorites. It's just the gas. I actually had this little piece left over. This was from another offcut, and I didn't know what I'd do with some sort of shape like that, but it was perfect for this. My nozzles and gas, and there was a little extra space, so put my little files on it. This one here is interesting. So this is just a cleat. There's nothing else to it apart from the cleat itself, and then I drilled some holes and put some round stock in it. And that, because it's only holding really light things, it's perfectly capable of taking the weight of all of these little items. So that's easy. I've just got this one here, which is predominantly for my squares. So you just slide your square in and out. Very easy, handy little jig. Looks neat, etc. This is just because it's fun. I actually put my iPhone here. And so my iPhone and the speaker, Bluetooth speaker, sit there. This one, I just included this little 45 as an offcut just to stop the iPhone from sliding forward. What else have we got? We've got the tape rack. So basically this is, once again, these are all very simple. So this is just a cleat with a long, thin backing board. And then I've just drilled some holes and glued some dowel into there. And we now have a neat little carrier for the tape. Tape always gets in the way. It's a real pain in the butt. So, and then there's this one. This is actually one of my favorites. So this is a little bit more of a custom design. I wanted this, basically one of these reciprocating saws, they're balanced strangely. So just putting in, say, a dowel or something wasn't perfect. I just basically held this up to a piece of wood and I drew around it, and then used the belt grinder to grind away all the bits I didn't want. And now it's just perfect, fits nicely. Just made this really basic box for the blades. I only have one at the moment, but I will need to get more. And then I've got my more practical wall. I'll quickly show you. This one here is a bit different, and I'll show you how that works because it's really good for heavier stuff and larger stuff. What I've actually done, I've just created these two freestanding pieces, and I've cut out the shapes so you can see the back piece of this is holding the steel at the front, goes to the back, and we got a 45 down there. And then because we need to hold weight out the front, then I've just got this drop down, which then has a kick back to the wall. So they're really handy because then if you get shorter pieces, you can move those closer together. Longer pieces, move them apart. So they're really, really flexible in the way that you can structure the wall. Now I've got my little hammer holder. So this is exactly the same as on the other wall. So we've got the French cleat here. I don't have like a backing board, it's just the cleat against cleat. And then I've got this angle on the front. And all I've done is drilled 2 holes and put some round stock in between. And now I've got a beautiful little hammer holder. And I also use it for my tongs. And also I just lengthened one of the bars. I actually didn't think about doing this originally, so I just had to recut another piece of bar, and I just use that as a holder for my brush. This one for the files isn't awesome, to be honest. I think I'm probably going to design it again. I went for less horizontal space taking and coming out instead, but I didn't do it very well. I think what I need to do is, instead of being parallel sides, maybe I start a bit further out and come in so I have a bit of an angle on it, because the way it sits now, firstly, it's difficult to see what you're going to be picking up, so you've got to come around to the side and choose which one you've got. And secondly, I just haven't spaced them far enough, so they hit each other on the way out and it's a bit clunky. And finally, this little box, once again, I've got the cleats. I've got 2 cleats on this one, one at the top, one on the bottom. And this is just a box I made for scraps because you just always end up with little bits and pieces. And if they're just lying around in a box like down there, it's difficult to go through. And this kind of sorts them into lengths. So don't have any of those yet. And yeah, so basically this is just where, when I've got some offcuts that don't fit on these racks because they're quite far apart, I stick them in here and I can use them for all sorts of little bits and pieces. So one note I want to make, I'm not a carpenter in any way. I work with steel more and I'm pretty bad at that. So you don't need a lot of skills to be able to do this. I haven't used any glue, which apparently is much stronger and a better way to do it. I've only used screws because I wanted to get through it as quickly as I could so I could start making steel projects. I haven't sanded any of this. I haven't treated any of this with any stain or lacquer. It's all raw. Maybe it'll darken over time, but I don't really care. So you don't really need many skills to be able to do this kind of thing. And actually one of the funnest parts about making this kind of system is coming up with, every design is different. So you can look on Pinterest or whatever you like and get some ideas, and they will definitely help, but you'll realize that the design that you need to make at that moment won't be exactly what you see. So you've always got to customize every design. So, you know, you can't find the designs for this online and just copy them exactly, because you're going to have a different number of screwdrivers. The material you're using is going to be different. You know, I saw sort of a proxy of this thing online, but it just kind of gave me an idea of what to do. And then I had to design the whole thing from scratch. And as I said, this one here was from a scrap piece that I just didn't think I was going to be able to use, and I came up with something that works really well for it. So it's just a wonderful experience. Now I can move things as I need them. Often when you're, say, doing a pegboard, you've laid everything out and it's very difficult to move because then you've got to take everything down and start again. This is just much, much easier. Get it in your life if you haven't. And I'll probably make some videos on how to make each individual shelf, as well as how to cut the cleats themselves. I'll talk to you about that, but that'll be in a different video. I just wanted to show you the system and how great it is and how flexible it is. Even if you're a steel worker, I'd absolutely recommend doing this. So that's my system. It was invented centuries ago, but it still works really well today. Highly recommend it. Get it in your life. Thanks for sticking around, and I'd really love a subscribe if you're getting something out of this. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.